2024, and welcome everybody and wish everybody a happy new year. Our first order of business will be to approve our minutes, and I'm going to call on our Vice Chairman, Commissioner Gooch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have reviewed the minutes and find everything to be in order. Motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Second thing on our agenda is public comments. There has been no one called to ask to have a public comment, so we'll move on to our investment report. Call on Mr. Beatty.
I'm Ted Beatty, the Rutherford County trustee. We didn't have any bids this month. Most of our rates were stable, but we did see the LGIP rate, which really fluctuates with the short term, down 2 basis points from 540 to 538. So if you hadn't kept up with the market, the sentiment has changed from kind of stable to increasing to stable to probably some rate decreases in the year ahead. So you're kind of beginning to see that a little bit. However, it didn't really impact us this month because our rates are still at 571, 538, and 495.
Okay, you've heard the report. Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion? Here, second? Second, okay. Johnson, I believe, may have been Piercy. I think we had 2 seconds. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Beatty.
Chairman.
Next is our fund condition report, and we'll call on our finance director.
So this month you'll notice that our cash balances continue to increase with the collection of property taxes. But there is one specific thing I want to point out one or two specific things I want to point out tonight. The first one is on our revenue report at the bottom. Every month I give you where we're at on property tax collections. And so I did put a note there because right now we are at the end of December, we were at 20% of property tax collections, which you can see is below normal for every year except fiscal year 2020. And this year and in fiscal year 2020, our largest escrow company payment for property taxes did not come in until January. And if you include that, that would put us to where we should be at a little above 50%, where we normally would be. That was a $92 million payment for a little over 52,000 parcels of land for us. And so we are where we should be there. But if you were to look at the percentages to last December, you are going to see them significantly down for the local revenue taxes for each property tax fund. And that is the reason why. So there should be no concern there. The other thing that I want to point out, which is a little bit of good news, is our property tax, county CTAS property tax collection has continued to trend better for the county. We were significantly negative, and now we are back to almost breaking even from a year-over-year comparison, and so that is some good news. Our hotel motel tax continues to improve as well, and we are still up on our adequate facilities and development tax. With that, that concludes my report.
Any questions for the director? Motion? Commissioner Johnson makes a motion to approve. Second, Commissioner Piercy. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Michael. Next is risk management financial report.
And Commissioners, how are you this evening? So for the 264 fund report, revenue versus expenditures for the month of December 2023, revenue is $2,207,739. Expenditures is $2,070,532. Revenue less expenditures is a positive $137,207. For the yearly total, 2023, you have $23,990,000 $1,075. Expenses, you have $20,294,865. Revenue less expenditures, you have a positive $3,695,210. And for the 23-24 fiscal year totals, you have for revenue $11,320,928 compared to expenditures is $11,338,639. Revenue less expenditures is a negative $17,711. On the 266 fund for the 23-24 fiscal year, you have workers' comp, month of December, $1,149.60. OJI, $39,592.07. For the total for the month of December 2023 is $40,741.67. Year-to-date total, workers' comp, $5,916.37. OJI, $224,712.09, and your total is $230,628.46. On the legal, county attorney for the month of December, there's $25,307.08. And that concludes that report, my report, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Ed? I have a motion to approve and a second. Ms. Piercy and Gooch was the second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ed. Continue, please.
Okay, the next thing is I have a recommendation coming from the Insurance and Risk Management Committee. You will find that there's kind of a summary page there of the changes. There's an eligibility chart that follows there, and part of what we've done here is to include several changes coming from the committee, and it gives you a brief explanation of what those changes. I will tell you the main changes that you'll see is that to add the stipend was taken out in 2023. It is our recommendation to put it back for as of 1/1 of 2025. It wasn't taken completely out. There was just a couple of buckets that it was taken out, and it has been requested by the committee to put it back in. I did meet with Michael looking at the budget, and as far as the cost to the budget, we figured it would be pretty negligible. And like right now, there's only, I think on the pre-65, there's only 8 people on the stipend plan. It's not a plan it's not a plan, but it's actually an HRA. It's put out there by the HRA where they use the stipend for medical expenses. But that's the main thing. You'll see one of the changes is, if I remember correctly, if you were born 1960 or later, your Medicare eligibility changes to 67, the age 67. So part of this eligibility language to make that change is, instead of saying pre-65 Medicare eligibility, post-65, it's just to say Medicare eligible. So that way, as we get into those people that Medicare eligibility changes from 65 to 67, our language matches that throughout the document that we have. And then there are some people who can qualify for disability from Medicare that become eligible, and then that has nothing to do with the particular age. And so it's just to clean up the document a little bit to make sure that it is it's going to meet what the coming changes are for eligibility.
I had a quick question. To change the stipend plan, you said you wanted to start that next January on the year 2025?
Yes, sir. It'd be 1/1 of 2025. And the main reason why is anytime you start changing plans and documents in the middle of the year, people will elect a certain plan or some type of, like a stipend, and then you make those changes, and it might change their minds how they would want to make that change. And so the problem you get into is sometimes you even have to do another open enrollment because you've made a change in the middle of the year. So what that would allow them to do and to be effective 1/1/25 is when the open enrollment is done, they can make that change voluntarily themselves and not have to hold a separate open enrollment because of the changes mid-year that are made.
Most of these costs are negligible. Commissioner Irving.
Is this something that, I'm just not sure what the stipend is. Is that something that allows them to purchase insurance somewhere else? Or how does it, what's the kind of the intent here? I'm trying to understand it.
It's an HRA account that there's $1,000, and the person can go out and purchase their own for $1,000 instead of using the county's, that they may qualify for the county's health insurance. But they don't give you $1,000. You have to have expenditures, and there's a lot of there's a lot of regulations to it also, to where it has to be, if you're in a pre-tax plan, you can't use it towards your premiums, but if you're in a post-tax plan, you can. And so there's a lot of regulations that goes along with it, and then you turn in your expenditures, and then you get reimbursed.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ed?
So what is the Medicare eligibility age?
Right now, it's 65, but then also if you have someone that applies for Medicare disability, there's not really an age for that. It's whether or not they qualify for it. Our present document says several times that it's been used for years. It says pre-65 and post-65. And so it would continue now to be pre-65, post-65 for those that are retiring. But if I remember correctly, I think if you're born 1960 or older, your Medicare eligibility will move to the age of 67. Yeah. So that's we're just cleaning up a little bit here, so when that time comes, it's not where someone thinks, oh, I thought I was going to get this at 65.
Mr. Chairman. Okay. Ed, the insurance committee gave the full blessing to these changes that you're talking about, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Sereno. Commissioner Johnson.
Could I ask a clarification, Mr. Chairman? Commissioner Harris's point, if you're born in 1960, and I was born before then, for the record, you're saying it changes to age 67 is when you become?
I'd have to pull it back up, but I know the eligibility changes, and I believe it's the year, it's either prior to 1960 or the year of 1960. I believe that's what it changes, where your eligibility, it changes to the age of 67.
Okay, it's not critical of whether to this, but I'm just trying to clarification.
Yep.
Any other questions for the director? Not, call roll.
Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you. Y'all have a good evening.
All right. Next item is number 7, a general fund budget amendment for food insecurities grant. Now, I'm not sure who's going to cover that for us.
I'll take that one. So this grant, this is the budget amendment for this grant. This grant has already been approved. What this grant is a pass-through, and we will be purchasing supplies for Journey Home and Nourish Food Bank. One of them is going to be vehicles for food delivery, and the other is going to be for kitchen appliances. This is a community development block grant, and we did not just pick these two nonprofits. These were the two nonprofits that applied through us. It was open to anybody. These were the two that qualified and applied through us. But this is a pass-through, and it is no match, but that is what is before you tonight.
Okay, and just a little more explanation on that. Like he said, that's a pass-through. The people that got this were the only ones that applied. So it's not us picking and choosing, in case anybody out there is wondering. Any other questions for Michael on this grant? And again, there's no match on this.
So you said there's only 2 people that did apply. How did we get that word out? How did they get word of this?
So a lot of times the state or the federal government will put out word to nonprofits, but they're not eligible to apply directly for these community development block grants. And so they reach out to us in some circumstances. Some circumstances, if we're aware of a community development block grant, we'll reach out to as many as we know in the community. A lot of times these, we're just familiar with working with them, and we'll just call as many people as we know to see if they qualify. If they want to participate with us, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, depending on the qualifications. And for this one in particular, these are the 2 that returned something to us and qualified. Some of the larger ones may not have qualified under this. I don't have the exact specifications for this one in front of me. But it would have been open for anybody to work with us on this one.
I'm just trying to understand how we get that word out.
Well, sometimes they come.
The only reason they know is because you call
No,
them?
sometimes they come to us as well. And a lot of times these grants from either the federal government or the state, or so a lot of times they're a pass-through from the state. The state will reach out to them and say, hey, go talk to your local city or county. And so in this instance, I cannot remember who reached out first, but I know it goes both ways. Reba in the finance office, and then starting Monday, it'll be also Alyssa as she transitions with Reba. That's why that position is so important, is they work on a daily basis with all of the nonprofits around here. And so it could be both ways, to answer your question.
Any other questions? Commissioner?
Okay, is the grant amount the $122,385?
Yes.
That's
Motion to approve.
Have a motion, and did we already have a motion? I thought we did. Okay, we have a motion. We do need a second to continue. Second, Commissioner Piercy. Any other discussion? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Serrano?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Yes, motion carries. Okay, next is item 8, general fund budget amendment for the jail. Spence, welcome.
Good evening. I'm Steve Spence, the Deputy Chief at the Sheriff's Office. This amendment is to recognize the revenue and expenditures for the new award financial year 2023 Bureau of Justice Assistant State Criminal Aliens Assistant Grant Award for construction and building improvements for the Adult Detention Center. We plan on using the money to buy door control electronic boards for the cell blocks. $46,070 and placing into our jail building improvements. This is a reimbursement for undocumented subjects that was incarcerated in the jail between July 1st of 2022 through June 30th of 2023.
No match.
So this is a grant we had already received. You're just dispersing money, is that correct?
Yes, sir. It's basically a reimbursement for the undocumented subjects that was in the jail.
Motion to
But
approve.
it was a no match grant.
Correct, no
originally.
match.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion, is that correct? Mr. Irving?
Second.
And Commissioner Serrano, second. Any other discussion or questions for the chief? Hearing none, call roll, Teresa.
Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Serrano?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Yes, motion carries.
Thank
Please
you.
continue, or that next one's not yours. Okay. General fund budget amendment for court security grant.
Be me.
Okay.
So this grant, like the other one, the grant has already been approved, but the finance office has worked with the state on the accounting side of it, and they have now given us the numbers. And this is a grant from the Administrative Office of the Courts, and it's going to no-match grant, and it's going to be used to purchase cameras and equipment related to those cameras for the stairwells in the judicial building.
And you said again, that's a no-match
It's a
grant.
no-match grant.
Any other questions for Michael on this grant?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second? Commissioner Johnson seconds. Any further discussion? Call roll.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Serrano?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes, motion carries. Item 10, General Purpose School Fund Budget Amendments.
Good evening, Commissioners, Chairman. My name is Brian Runyon, CFO of Rutherford County Schools, and over to my left is Trey Lee, Chief Operation Officer at Rutherford County Schools, and I believe he'll be answering probably some of your questions about one of these amendments. We have 3 amendments, and they all are out of the Fund 141, which is our General Purpose School Fund. And Chairman, I just wanted to ask, do you want me to read these individually and vote on them individually?
Let's just continue with them unless one of the members says stop. If you want to split these separate, we'll stop, but unless that's...
I'd like to split them.
Okay, just one at a time then.
Sure. Okay, this first amendment is to increase the Fund 141 budgeted revenues and expenditures, as well as a decreased fund balance to move money that was donated in FY 22-23 and FY 23-24 to fund the supplies and materials for the implementation of CTAS in Rutherford County High Schools. The total amount of the money moved from fund balance is $5,300. Revenue will increase $1,100 for the current fiscal year. These amount equals $6,400, which is the increased amount of budgeted expenditures and supplies and material in the general purpose school budget. The funds will be used to purchase chessboards, set pieces, and clocks.
Something I want to mention, that money was donated money, if I understand that correctly, just so the public's not thinking, well, that's something that school boards...
That money is donated and is restricted specifically for that purpose.
Correct.
Okay, you've heard the explanation there. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion,
Second.
second. Any further discussion? Call roll.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Serrano?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch? Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes, motion carries. Go ahead, please, Brian.
Okay, the second amendment is for the state special ed pre-K grant. This is a state grant that has already been approved by Tennessee Department of Education. The amendment is to increase Fund 141 budgeted revenues and expenditures in the amount of $429,168 to recognize the awarded state special education pre-K grant for FY 23-24. The funds will be used for additional education assistant positions to assist in the pre-K classrooms and additional training for teachers and NEAs. Rutherford County Schools has 22 integrated preschool classes across the district that serve over 300 students. The monies afforded to us by this grant will ensure that all students will have access to highly trained teachers and staff to meet their educational needs.
Any questions?
Chairman, how many positions is this?
This is approximately 8 positions.
Okay. And does this affect maintenance of effort?
It does not.
What are you going to do if there's no similar grant for next year?
The Fund 142, which is our federal programs fund, will be picking these positions up if there is not a similar grant or, a renewal of this grant itself. So Fund 142, which is our federal projects fund, that most of the time those grants do not come here for approval. They get approved by our board, but that's Fund 142, so they will pick up those additional EA positions.
So if they're not approved, they just get picked up again by the federal government and funded that way? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. So there is 2 particular grants in a consolidated application, what they call the consolidated funding application in Fund 142, that has SPED related expenditures or sped related grant that they will go in through that. It's called IDAB money. So that's where they will be funded from.
And does it affect any other money that we received?
No.
No, okay. Thank you.
And also this grant has no local match either.
Teresa, do we have a motion on this? We don't. Any questions from the committee on this grant? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion to approve. Commissioner Irving, Commissioner Johnson seconds. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Mr. Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Yes, motion carries. Please continue.
Okay, so the third and final amendment for the night is probably the one y'all are going to have the majority of the questions about. It's our mass grading bid, and so on Tuesday, November 28th, 2023, Purchasing and Engineering and Construction received bids for the mass grading portion of the site work for the Beatty Elementary property. All bids have been reviewed, and Engineering and Construction recommends demo plus grading base bids for a total bid of $2,790,600. Engineering also recommends requesting contingency of $250,000 and additional architectural fees of $600,000. All requested funds to be included in the final request for the complete project at a total of $3,640,600. The breakdown of that is design fee is $600,000, site bid is $2,790,600, contingency of $250,000, and a total request of $3,640,600. Engineering recommends motion to approve the request by the BOE for funding in the amount of $3,640,600. This request for funding will require an amendment of the GPS fund balance and will decrease the account 39,000 unassigned fund balance and increase the account 99,100,590 transfer to the other funds as presented. So this money will be transferred over into our building programs fund, which is our Fund 189. And
There's no new money involved with this. This is money that you've already got in the budget.
this is money that's in our unrestricted fund balance.
I was going to say, this money was not budgeted, but it is in their unassigned fund balance.
You've heard the request. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Recognized.
Okay, so which school is this for?
This is going to be for the Beatty, well, we're calling it the Beatty Elementary School right now. And are we looking at the middle or just the elementary? Just for the elementary school.
Okay, and that school hasn't been approved yet, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That actual bids for that school is coming in on the 18th of this month and will be probably brought before this body next month for the approval of the school.
As of today, the commission nor the school board has approved that school.
But they have only approved the design of the elementary school as it currently stands.
Okay, they've approved the design, so they've approved this, like the $600, the
They have
$600,000.
right now approved is approximately, I think it was $900,000 that was approved for the design of the future Beatty Elementary is what is approved as of today by the commission.
That is correct. This time last year, the commission approved $900,000 to begin the design with the intent of funding the school as we got here.
Right, but it's not approved yet. It's just approving the design for, and then you're wanting another $600 for the design.
That is to complete the design, yes, sir. The architect has completed the design based on the budget.
It was always expected to have more later. We came with the school board came with just the initial design fee to get them through the first design phase. This gets them through now the construction phase, now that they've completed their initial plan design. And then, of course, also in here would be the grading package for that elementary school, which we have to keep separate for the shared and unshared money portion is why they're speaking about just being the elementary school tonight.
Okay, so is there a budget in place for the Beatty Elementary?
Yes, sir, and it's been presented to this body in the past. I don't have the, I want to say it's around 60,
Wait, okay, I don't recall seeing however much approval of the school, okay? And I'm not sure I've seen an approval for the budget. I've seen a financing amount that was built into, on an estimated basis, into the debt service fund, but I have not seen, to my recollection, an approval of the school piece.
no, the school construction has not been approved.
Okay. So there's not a budget in place for the school?
There is a budget that has been presented. We don't, the budgets in the past have not been approved, but we do present them to Health and Ed and to budget as we go through. Yes, sir.
When was that presented to budget? Because I don't recall seeing
There,
it.
last year at this time, they did present a categorized for when they projected the $60 million amount, they did categorize a potential FF&E construction cost and design cost. And that is generally what comes to this body, not necessarily for approval. It's more of an information item, since this body's job is just to approve the funding. An itemized budget is used internally over at the school board because the capital projects fund by nature is not a budgeted fund of the county.
Okay, so there is one out there. Now, what's the estimated, this kind of money, $3 million roughly, the estimated pre-finance cost was what?
$60 million.
Yeah.
Well, that would be,
All in.
that's the amount that's going to be financed.
No, that was the all-in cost.
The all-in
This will,
cost.
this
So
would
this will
reduce,
roll into the financing?
no, this
It
will
will come off
reduce,
of,
this would reduce the borrowing for the elementary school.
yes,
Okay, so it'd be 57 million
for round numbers, yes, sir.
for financing. Okay, so we got 3 million pre-financed approval, and then we got 57 million to be financed. Okay, and is there anything coming out of 177 for this?
No, sir.
Or any other accounts? Basically 57 million and we're done.
The only other
Assuming
thing
the
that,
bids come in.
the only other thing that came was the 900,000 that came last year. So you could really, it'd be 56, I guess, if you wanted to round a little closer, it'd be 55 or 56 million of borrowing. And I don't want to, I'm going to speak a little bit for the school board, so they may get mad at me, but I think one of the reasons that when we talked about this originally, that I suggested and they agreed to take this out of fund balance was so because this is an elementary, we wanted to use as much of shared money and borrow as little amount of sharing as we could. And so I think they're going to be coming with some upper grade projects. And so I think if this were to get approved tonight, you're going to see some more money coming out of their fund balance for the elementary school, because we would rather use that money already being shared for that project and borrow for anything up or above sixth grade. But I don't want to speak for them, but that was kind of my recommendation to them.
So can I ask a clarification? Because so basically it's $3 million that's coming out of 142 basically, right?
141?
141, okay. And that's already shared money.
Correct.
Okay. And so how much of this can, if this is all the elementary and intermediates and high schools are not, or middle schools and high schools are not shared, then shouldn't more of this come out of, instead of the upper grades, shouldn't more come out of the already shared money?
Well, that's what I'm saying. This is coming out of shared money. This approximately 3.6 million that you see tonight. We took the already 900,000 from last year out of shared money, out of 141, and I would anticipate a potential another 15 to 25 million we've kind of thrown around, depending on what our fund balance is. I would love, I don't want to speak for Dr. Sullivan, I would love for us to pay for maybe half of that elementary school out of already shared money, because that's going to get you more than a dollar for dollar reduction out of the borrowing cost. So we were throwing out a 56 or $55 million borrowing. You're going to save another 14 or 15%, depending on what the new ADA rate is, by taking this out of fund balance instead of borrowing for the entire thing.
And if I'm understanding you right, what you were thinking we might go as high as 30 million
Out of their fund balance, potentially
out of 141. basically.
really
and then
depends on-
finance, and, I'm sorry.
It depends on what their fund balance is as we get in towards the end of the fiscal year. Because my recommendation to them was if they come back with the bids, I believe Brian said they were going to be open on the 18th. Initially, they're going to need to move some money anyways out of their fund balance for cash flow because we don't plan on borrowing into the fall. And I think the plan would be on my end, from what we've talked about, I don't want to speak for Dr. Sullivan, I am a little bit, so I apologize, but would be to use some shared money. And we've thrown around a number anywhere between 20 and 30 million, I think. And then that way, any future, we've saved essentially 15 or 14%, depending on what the ADA rate is that comes out in March. That would also give us a better estimate of the number. And then when we go to borrow in the next fall, we would potentially borrow 30 million less for the elementary school, which would free up borrowing capacity that we already put in the budget for any future need. If that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense what I'm saying.
If you can go as high as 30 million or so, give or take, I'm not holding you to it, obviously. The 30 million for out of 141 is already shared. That frees up, as you were pointing out, the additional money. Any idea what the borrowing capacity looks like, what the debt service fund looks like after, if something along those lines were to occur, where does that put us in terms of if they were to come in for another, and I'm not putting words in your mouth either, were to come in for an intermediate or middle, whatever you call it, where does that put us, Michael, in terms of borrowing capacity if we were to use 141 money up to, say, 30-ish? Where does that put us?
Well, our hope would be that would free up an additional maybe $30 to $35 million of borrowing capacity, because we initially put in there $60 million of borrowing capacity in the debt service fund. And so I think we'll get a little bit better than a dollar for dollar return is the hope, with revenues growing in that fund and things like that. And so the hope would be it would free up an additional $30 to $35 million to be spent on a addition, land. I mean, their list is pretty large. So that was kind of the game plan, I think, when we worked together on this. Is that your recollection, Dr. Sullivan?
Spot on. We're really looking to see, trying to keep that fund balance at about 15%. So how much can we pull to keep the fund balance at 15%, which is still very healthy, but where we feel comfortable. But then we are out of straws to say that we can pull to fund things ourselves. So this is kind of a new way.
I'm sorry, I can barely hear. Sorry.
Let me pull that up. So once we pull this portion out of fund balance, we're really to the point where we don't have any other moves we can make to free up funding from sources that we already have.
Right, but that would reduce the financing piece to probably 30, and then we've got additional capacity, presumably, through additional pennies, presumably, especially in the next budget.
Depending on a lot of variables, interest rates.
Right, there's a whole bunch of variables, I get that.
And how revenue comes in, and there's a lot of variables, but I think the ideal, us using estimates here, would be to free up that 30 million that was going to be intended to be borrowed for elementary school. Hopefully that would free up, because remember, we would have to share part of that 60 million with the school system, with the city schools. So hopefully that would free up almost capacity for us to spend a full 30 or 35 million on another project, whether that be schools, county. I mean, that would free up some extra capacity, and I think when we worked, we were looking at options without raising property taxes, trying to find options to do the elementary project and some future needs for both the county and school system, and that was kind of the best option we could come up with as a team.
The school board hasn't approved this yet, but it's on next week's agenda. It's not anything we ever want to talk about, but we are going to be looking, and I'm going to be asking the school board for approval to spend about 1.8 million out of fund balance for portables for next year for growth. So that's something that we will need to take into account when we're looking at the fund balance portion. But
I'm sorry, 1.8?
1.8, they're about 180,000 apiece installed for
which schools?
My best guess right now, because principals have until Friday to fill it out, is going to be Laverne High School, Stewart's Creek High School, Riverdale, and that gives me one extra to see where I need to put it.
Were there portables taken away from Riverdale and we're adding back?
Yes. Because until the addition is done, the kids are still moving in there, so we need places to put the kids, and then hopefully.
I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah. Hopefully when the addition is finished, we can take those portables away, but until the addition's finished, we still need room for the kids.
thing I'd like to interject myself is I appreciate where you're pulling this money from. That saves us quite a bit of money. Michael can give you round numbers if you're interested in seeing how much that's saving us. But I appreciate the school board and the director working with us on those and using those accounts that are already shared. Any other questions for the director? Commissioner Piercy.
Maybe not for the director, maybe for Mr. Lee, but on the site bid, how large an area is that acre-wise that they're actually going to do?
60 acres, the entire site. This is just...
Well, now, you said a while ago it was just for the elementary school.
We have to mass grade the whole site, and we have to dig the detention ponds because it's part of our TDEC responsibility. Other than that, the only money in here is for elementary. It's to build the pad for the elementary school.
So the pad money is in the site bid. That's bringing it back up, shot rock, ready for the slab.
We are not building the pad for the middle school at this time, no, sir. Because then we would have both mixed together, and we're not doing that.
But you're just doing the pad on how many acres?
It's probably about 10 to 12, the building
12 acres.
itself.
Okay. Now a question for Dr. Sullivan. We approved some money for Oakland, Riverdale, and I believe Smyrna High not very long ago.
Correct.
100+ million.
Correct.
Was any of that money for Riverdale going for any type of classroom structures?
Oh, yes, yes, absolutely. A huge portion of that was to add classrooms.
And you still need more portables?
We do, because to answer a long story short, Rockville High School blew up to about 2,500 kids a couple years ago, and we rezoned Rockville back over to Riverdale. And so we have one more year of that grandfather where we have more students that are moving in to get us to that 2,500. Riverdale's getting very close to that anyways, but with not having a grandfather class next year, they're going to have an additional 200 students just from not having that grandfather.
Was there any possibility more of that money that went to Riverdale could have been spent on classrooms?
I think you always can. I think we added several other things, whether it was closing some of the building in, but those designs were done well before I got here, so I don't know the exact answers, but you can always look to do anything with more classroom space.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, recognize?
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
So I guess I need this, whoever does the bid. So how many bids did we get on this project?
There were 3 contractors that bid it.
Okay, so tell me, I know how the county works, but I don't necessarily know how you work. So tell me how this works. They turn bids in. Do you have a staff? Do you have a board? Or you're the only person that goes over the bids?
Oh, myself and the purchasing department.
Purchasing department?
Yes, sir.
With the county?
Yeah.
Okay.
With the school board.
School board?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then how's that work? Does it have to be approved by the school board or you come straight to us?
No, sir, it goes to the school board for approval, and then it goes to Health and Ed for approval.
And Health and Ed approved this already?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I want to clarify something. The actual bid itself does not go to Health and Ed for approval. It's only this budget amendment that goes to Health and Ed for approval. The current purchasing act that we are under, the purchase and selection of awarding a bid stops at the school board for who they award that to. The dollar amount and funding of that is what transfers to Health and Ed and what you see before you tonight and what will go on to commission. I just want to make sure there's a clarification there, because tonight we are not voting on whichever contractor they awarded. You're only voting on the budget amendment to fund the purchase that the school board approved.
Mr. Irvin, you're recognized.
Just to follow up on Commissioner Piercy's point, how many, with all the money that was spent on Riverdale, how many net new seats were there?
The board's direction was to take the classroom additions to get us to 2,500 students maximum. There were currently, when the designs were completed, there were 2,200 roughly students there, and there were a couple hundred students that were there in portables. So above brick and mortar, these additions added about 500 seats at Oakland and Riverdale. It's the same design at both schools.
Because the numbers I've heard at Riverdale, the net change was about 108 students if you look at the independent study versus the 2,500.
Don't disagree with that. At initial design, there were only 2,200 students there, and the board asked to go to 2,500. So it was a net brick and mortar of 500 students. We already had 200 students in portables, and we added 300 additional seats, classrooms, to get us to 2,500. The analysis that was recently done, the enrollment had changed by a couple hundred students. It's knocking on the door at 2,400 now at Riverdale. So when this is finished, it'll probably be 2,500 plus.
I mean, the concern I've heard is there was only 108 net new seats. I understand the machinations or the pluses and minuses you just went through, but that's a concern when we spent a lot of money for 108 net new seats at Riverdale.
Well, the part of those seats are currently there in portables. So you are getting new seats in the building, close to 500 inside the building. Now, are a number of those students already there? Yes, sir. There's no doubt they're there.
Okay, and when the additions are completed, there will not be any portables? Is that fair?
I would not use the term any. The vast majority of them would leave, yes, sir. And the intent with the rezoning, and I'm speaking for Dr. Sullivan now, is that eventually all of them go away. The city of Murfreesboro has put a attachment to the permit that these portables must leave when these additions are finished.
All of the portables,
Yes, sir.
none
That's
to
what
be
they're-
replaced?
That's what the attachment to the building permit says, yes, sir. They all have to leave.
Thank you.
I will add, what does that look like when there's more than 2,500 students there? Because we don't have additional buildings, we'll address that with the city like we always do.
I want to mention to my committee, I'm having trouble seeing you. If I don't address you and you're wanting to speak, just speak up so I can recognize you. No, and you guys are all right. So. Mr. Piercy.
You mentioned you're dealing with the city. Is this property in the city limits? So any road improvements for this school to
Oh, are you talking about
function?
Beatty or Riverdale? Sorry.
Beatty.
No, it is not. It's not.
Okay.
No.
Has, a few years back, we set up kind of a little checklist for y'all to check, like, you know, with particularly the road superintendent.
That's all been completed.
Has he looked at this
absolutely.
site?
He's been very involved.
Is there a huge expense to improving the roads for the school?
I would not say that it's anything above average like we did at Plainview or Rockvale. Nothing, anything like we did. I think you're referring to all the road improvements that were done at Plainview. No, sir. We've met numerous times with Mr. Brooks. In fact, when we began to think about purchasing that project, before we even began negotiation, I talked to him. Those roads were widened. There were shoulders added, I want to say 3 to 5 years ago, and Greg's not here. I'll get it wrong, but they have done road improvements there. We have worked with him. We've aligned, and the county planning department, Doug and those guys, we've had 2 meetings with them already to align roads to where it makes better usage of our property that the county's buying, to line up some roads with some subdivisions that are there. We're also looking at some of the potential road widenings being taken place on the property that we've purchased from the Beatty, so that we're not looking at purchasing property twice down the road. And Greg will get another look at all these road improvements. I've sent the traffic studies. All of that stuff has been shared with the County Planning Commission and the road superintendent.
Okay. I got one more question, and I'm gonna quit. this is an elementary school, correct?
Yes, sir.
Building to the capacity to hold how many children?
11 to 1,200, yes, sir.
Is there a limit that you can build a school for elementary? Is that the limit that can be in a structure, or can there be more in a bigger structure?
From a building standpoint, if all we're doing is putting kids into a building, we can build them as big as we want. Is that what's good for learning? No, it's not. But we're building this to be able to add 500 or 600 additional students if needed, which is very similar to what we've done to Rockville Middle and our middle schools, to where you can add on to the wings. These will be able to add 4, 6, 8 classrooms at each wing, roughly. Yeah.
The thing we've done differently, Commissioner Pearson, when we got to Plainview, it is much cheaper, long run, for the county to be able to add on classrooms than to purchase portables in the long run. Plainview is the first school that was designed where the end of the wings, we can add 4 to 8 classrooms at a time. We could add 4 if the school got, and we built the cafeterias large enough and the gyms large enough so that as the communities grew, those schools are designed for a maximum of 1,500 students. The original design is for 1,100, and that's where they will start. If the community grows and we see the problem that we've got at Stewart's Creek and problems we've had all over the county, the intent is not to have to purchase portables or relocate portables to this new school. We're looking at Beatty the same way, that the buildings are designed to be added onto so that we can come in and add additional classrooms, a few at a time, so that we don't have to put portables there and gradually increase to 1,500. That is a number that
I'm very uncomfortable with.
the instruction department is not, that would be, they don't want to go there.
Have you looked at the issue of going ahead now and building more classrooms while you're building this structure, rather than having to come back and go through all the bid process and take a chance of material being higher in the future based on doing it now or doing it later?
If you're asking, do you want to build the building to 1,500 now, but we could only put, I don't know, 800 students in it, I don't know how long it's going to take. We may sit there with that building for a number of years at 50 to 60% capacity. I'm not smart enough to do a cost analysis out there because I don't know how far the time is out on that school being finished to be able to analyze the cost difference in the money that we spend now and the money that we spend in the future. Based on our consultants and based on the information and the data that we've received, this is the decision that the school board has made and that we feel is prudent financially, is to build to this point and then get it full, and if we need to, then we would go forward.
Only thing I would add is when we're looking at it from a school system, I understand the financial aspect. We already have the number 1 and number 2 largest elementary schools in the state, and they're at 1,300. One of them doesn't perform well already, so we start to see a decline. So that's part of the reason you see us not wanting to put that many kids in one area.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes, I got a couple of questions. Michael, this one is for you. We have to share money with the city of Murfreesboro, correct?
If we were to borrow for construction and the initial money that went into 141, yes. This money they're asking for tonight to move has already been shared.
Okay. Now, this is for you, young man. Do you have any idea how many city students are enrolled in the Rutherford County school system?
I can find out for you. Because we technically would have to take all students that live in Rutherford County regardless of where, and it fluctuates on a daily basis.
Okay.
So roughly it would be all of the city schools, so 8,000 kids.
Okay, is there, now, my information is that 80% of the population in Rutherford County lives inside the city limits of some city. Okay, so what I'm looking at and what I'm thinking about is the number of city students that are being educated at the cost of the county. How long has it been since the city of Murfreesboro has built a city school?
Salem Elementary would have been 2018. And so I will add in every 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grader is a Rutherford County student.
Okay, well, what are you basing the urgency of building an elementary school out on the Beatty property?
Stewart's Creek Elementary, Browns Chapel, and Blackman Elementary are already overcrowded.
But you don't know how many city students are in there that don't need to be in the county system, correct?
They have that option to go to the county school system because they live here and pay taxes.
That's all.
Commissioner Irving.
A couple follow-ups. One to Commissioner Johnson's. Does the city reimburse us in any way, or is there any, how does it, if we're basically picking up a student that the city ordinarily would provide an elementary school for, how does that work?
The only way we get reimbursed is the following year based on the ADA rate, the average daily attendance rate, which is a lagging indicator for the new TISA funding model, or ADM, which was under BEP. So you would get reimbursed for that child because now the new TISA formula, the funding is supposed to follow the child, I believe is the state's tagline.
Supposedly, yes.
So the following year, if that student was to enroll this year, next year's funding is based on the prior year enrollment. So we would get additional state funding dollars. I can't remember what the base formula of TISA is. It's like 6,300 or something.
6860, and then we get 70% of it, so 5,200 roughly.
Yeah, so we would get that funding from the state, which the city would no longer get. But other than that, the city does not cut us any check or money, so it would lower our local revenue share that we currently share with the city.
To pick up on something Commissioner Piercy said, I'd love to see the incremental analysis. I mean, maybe we could, Michael's office or somebody could help out. I mean, if it only costs a couple extra million, that's still a lot of money to add this wing now versus later. That's something I think should go into our analysis, because that's, if it's a financed cost versus coming out of 177 or coming out of wherever it comes out of, otherwise out of 142, with current pennies, that's a whole lot more expensive, than if we're doing it basically incrementally now and can figure it out. So I'd love to see that analysis that Commissioner Piercy was asking about. One other quick question, or maybe a couple. The new charters, the impact of non-public schools on these elementaries, and I guess the following question is going to deal with middle and high school, but so if you want to throw that in, that's fine, but I'm trying to get a sense for the impact of the new charters in particular at this point on the elementaries in terms of how that affects, and I'm looking at it more from a finance perspective instead of from a total number. Can you address that?
Are you talking about from a how much money would we lose by the charter schools being here, or how much would we not have to build?
There's the current cost, but there's also the aspect of, do we need this many seats? How many, in other words, do we need another elementary? Do we need another intermediate? Do we need another high school? Kind of a question. But I mean, there's two aspects. There's the operational side, and there's also the longer-term capital effect.
The Springs are two charter schools that we have approved, and then the one that's opening, the Charter Commission has approved. The two we have approved have not found land or looked to open yet. Springs was approved over a year and a half ago and still does not have land. They have taken their initial application from hoping to take 800 students to down to about 160 because of the lack of being able to find land. Rutherford Collegiate Prep was trying to ask the Charter Commission to lower grade levels because they can't find land to build. So do I think they'll have an impact on enrollment? Until they're here, I don't know. I would be shocked if we lost students. Where I think the charter schools are going to pull from are some of our private schools a little bit that have a waiting list and homeschooled parents. If we take 100, let's say all three open tomorrow, their total enrollment isn't even what we add in a year. So maybe they save us from adding an addition someday down the road totally. They're not going to do anything, in my opinion, and really from we've looked at this, and I know you guys look at this throughout your job, but this is what we do day in and day out. We're not just throwing frivolous numbers out here of what we think with our students. We did an 18-month zoning study. This is what we need, where we need a building, and I feel like we discussed this ad nauseum of why don't we do this and do this. This is what our school board has asked to do. We don't want elementary schools of 1,500 students. We don't want middle schools of 1,700 kids, but we have them. And if we want this school system to still be high performing, at some point we have to look at where do we draw the line. And I will tell you, as the director of schools, 1,100 and 1,200 for an elementary school is at the very top max. The school board can do as they wish, but I would be shocked in my daily conversations with them that we would ever want to go above that.
Okay, thank you. I'd still like to see the analysis the Commissioner Piercy
Michael, I'm not sure
went
how to
through.
go about getting analysis. Our school system doesn't
The
support
incremental
school
cost of
that.
adding additional seats now versus later, just try to get a sense for how that, and then, go ahead.
To say the best way to do that, and the only way I've ever found to get an accurate way to do that, is when you do your GC bid, you're going to have to do a breakout price, which is going to cost you a little bit of money to find a very accurate analysis of that. But a lot of times that GC bid is going to be manipulated to entice you to go ahead and build that if you were to do that. So I don't know that it's going to be fully accurate. The other way you could do it is you could take the cost per square foot. You could ask them to do a breakout cost for the square foot for the classroom space on the GC bid, not including the cafeteria or a FEMA shelter in there, because you still have to have a different capacity for the cafeteria. You still have to have the cafeteria capacity for the 1,500 elementary or whatever that is. So you'd have to get that out of there and do a cost per square foot on the classroom size, and you could extrapolate that based on current debt rates. Those are the only two accurate ways I would know how to do that. But I think you also run the risk of, if you were to go ahead and add those on, it's the cost to heat and cool those spaces, which doesn't sound like much, but a school's very leaky compared to a home. It just is. And so I think you could get close, but I think those are probably the two ways, and I'd be glad to help the school system to do that. I do think that would take a little bit of time, and I don't know that it would be done in time for the January 18th bid opening, which I can almost guarantee it wouldn't be.
And it wouldn't be part of that bid package that was submitted to them anyways.
Okay, and then the last question, there was a lot of things thrown out at the Health and Ed meeting. And I was trying to get a sense from a finance perspective, so we can start thinking about it at least, kind of what some of this, kind of what the plans are currently, and kind of an intent to kind of begin to think about financing. Michael and I, you and your finance director, we're talking a little bit earlier about some ways, you could drop 15 million here and finance another 15, but could you give us a sense for the current thinking? Because, the farther ahead we can begin to think about this, I think the better off we are, in terms of, we've got maybe some additional financing capacity coming up from this elementary idea, but it's still not going to be cheap if the plan, goes forward. And there were a lot of things thrown out. And towards the very end of the meeting, Michael kind of brought everybody back down to earth, so to speak, in terms of let's focus on debt service levels and things along those lines. Not a negative comment, just trying to think about it just in terms of where we are.
So I'll tell you what our school system needs, and I don't say once, these are needs. We need an elementary school on the Beatty property this year. We need the Laverne High School addition, which we will hopefully approve architects for that next Thursday. That will go through bid. We still have 2 pieces of land that we are looking to purchase. So they're the immediate needs. As soon as we get an architect approved, I imagine we will go to Beatty Middle School and look to fund that Beatty Middle School. That will probably be part of, and I know Michael's timeline's different, we will, as soon as we get the architect and the elementary moving, we will start moving for an architect for the middle school. Probably very similar, doing design fees out of our fund balance, those different types of things.
What year is that in?
April. No, it's not April.
their 5-year plan, it looks at doing a design for a middle school in April or May of this year, or spring, early summer of this year. Usually the county is always 1 year, 6 months to 1 year behind on the borrowing. We do a lot of bond anticipation notes like we did this year for the high school additions and things like that. And so I'll say I think we've talked specifically and looked at least the next 12 months. And for the next 3 projects or 3 items, and I'll list those, the Beatty Elementary, which we've talked about now. Dr. Sullivan and I think we have a pretty good plan, and the school board have a pretty good plan, a way to do the Laverne High School addition and maybe some potential land on the north end of the county. We've talked about those 3 things specifically, and after that, we'll have to have some hard discussions on funding for that middle and future high school. But that's getting about, for us on a borrowing time frame, you're looking at 2 to 3 years out from that for us, barring some legislature help or something to do moving around with pennies on the property tax rate. But I think I have some solid options for the commission to consider if they wish to move forward with the elementary North End County land and a Laverne High School addition. I think we have some solid options for the commission to consider.
I'll let you guys know that I've been nothing but transparent through the budget process, and that'll be the way I continue to do. But when it comes to what does our school system need, my job is to ask for what our school system needs. I'm sorry I don't have the funding answers or the funding aspects. That's not what our school system was our school board was elected for, and that's not what they hire me for. I try to work with it as much as possible. But I very much envision a middle school being asked for in similar ways that you're looking at today. It won't be the full amount for the middle school, but it'll be the starting to get the site, the architecture fees, construction, and as soon as we get land on the north end for a high school, we're going to do the exact same thing to ask for starting for that, because for a high school that we already need yesterday, we're 3 years out from opening it if we broke ground tomorrow. And so our problems are not getting better. So I just know that I understand the ask and the task and the hard positions that puts you in, but we have to ask for what we need.
Commissioner Johnson, you're recognized.
Would you share that information that I asked you about with us when you find out?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
I can tell you the number of kids that live in the county that go to the city is right over 9,200 roughly, because we're at 14.67% split is the last one.
I've got a question for Commissioner Johnson. On that statistic you've got of 80% of the children, are you also speaking of Smyrna, Laverne, not just Murfreesboro, or is that 80% of Murfreesboro students only? Yes, it's 80% is Murfreesboro students. Okay.
Thank you.
Questions?
Thank you for your effort.
Any other questions for the director? Or
Mr. Chairman.
You're recognized.
Thank you. We approved this tonight. We're going to be moving dirt. We haven't moved dirt yet. Then the school board is probably going to come back and ask to build sometime March or April.
No, sir. It'll be Health and Ed. We are having bids open on Thursday, the 18th. We have a special call meeting that next Monday. Health and Ed gets it on Tuesday, so this body will see it the very first week of February. So the full commission will see it the second week of February.
So you'll probably come back through budget to the commission maybe as early as February?
Yes, sir. The plan is February.
So I don't know about the scenario that I'm going to lay out, but we approve this and we start moving dirt. Then we look at building, financing, or approving the building, and the commission turns down that request because of the cost and the fear of raising taxes, those kind of things. What does that do to this money that we're approving now?
It would be spent, and you would have a nice building pad at the Beatty property.
So a lot of the decisions I think that the commission is going to be making hinges upon our success working with our legislative delegation to come up with alternative taxes. That's a big part of it. If we're not successful in that, there's a number of commissioners that have already said we're not going to approve something like this. I'm just kind of laying out a scenario. I don't want to build a pad if we're not going to build a school. But I also have heard some of the things that we've talked about is Laverne High School is a sure thing. We have committed to do that. And I think this elementary school is something that we've already committed to do. So this commissioner is probably well on board with it, and I'm hoping the other commissioners will be as well. But I think the financing has kind of already been worked out for this. As far as high schools and things like that, you're probably going to run into some additional challenges because of that. Have I kind of laid that out right, Michael?
Yes, and I'll summarize that to say, I think the commission gave me the direction when we built the budget this past year for FY24 to build in the debt capacity for this elementary school, and we did so. And then in working, we did not build any capacity in for the Laverne High School addition. However, both the school board and I think several commissioners have stated that's a priority for them. So I worked with Dr. Sullivan and Brian, and we came up with the option of using some fund balance money to free up borrowing capacity and try to save on some of the shared revenues to kind of have a game plan for a potential Laverne High School addition and this elementary school. Now, if that Laverne High School addition comes in more than we've estimated, the commission may have to say, hey, all we have is X number of dollars, you're going to have to go back to the drawing board, and that's a very real possibility. But I do feel like we have solid options for both this elementary school and for a potential Laverne addition. Now, everything after that is going to take some really hard discussions and decisions, and so I think you're correct. These two, I think we're okay. Anything after is going to need some help from the legislature or moving some pennies around.
Thank you very much.
When does the Laverne High bid come in?
Oh, it's only going to have an architect approved on Thursday, so we're still, probably 3 to 6 months design, 3 months? Yeah, possibly 3.
Still very early stages. That has not even come to Health and Ed yet for an approval of money for the design.
So on Michael's timetable, is Laverne next budget cycle or this one?
So I'll tell you from our end on the county, I know this is going to be a little different than the schools. If the schools come next month, which they've kind of told us they're coming next month, to really ask for the full funding of the construction of the elementary school, we're left with very few options because I would really prefer us not, with interest rates are going down and we just borrowed this past fall. My recommendation would be not to borrow potentially again until next fall. So between now and next month, we'll look at a couple options. One is going to be, like we talked about tonight, taking some money out of fund balance. The other option is potentially another bond anticipation note, which is what we did last year for the high school additions. And hopefully that would buy us enough time, and we think it will based on the numbers they've given me, would buy us enough time to get us to next fall to do a borrowing sometime next September, October, November timeframe is kind of what we've thrown around while keeping a close eye on interest rates. And they have come down a little bit. They ticked a little bit back up, but they are down from where we were last fall. So that's kind of would be my recommendation or game plan. Now, I will go to the bond market whenever this body directs me to go, but that would be kind of my recommendation to this body.
To follow up on Chairman Phillips' point, would it be appropriate, given that not much dirt is likely to be moved over the next month, to reconsider this at the next budget meeting, moving the dirt piece as well?
I would say this bid has a contingent. I don't have to look. I don't know how many days this bid was good.
I won't give you that answer in 2 statements. One, the bid is only good for 45 days, so that would not work for the contractor. Number 2, I need this time or we're not going to make August of 25. August of 25. If I don't start moving dirt in 2 weeks, I'm not going to make the schedule. We're already condensed the schedule, and the contractors at our pre-bid today are squirming, to be correct. They're not sure they can make our schedule now. So if we put it off a month, I've got two problems. I've got probably 2 out of the 5 contractors will pull out, and the bid that I have today won't be good. I'll have to rebid it.
Mr. Chairman, is there a motion on the floor?
There is not.
Okay, Representative Health and Ed, we looked at this, and I appreciate all the questions. I think we need those questions. Hopefully, they've been answered. And this came out of Health and Ed, I believe, unanimously. And so my motion is to approve.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Sereno. Discussion. Irvin?
I hear what the Chief Operating Officer said, and I hear what Chairman Phillips said. I'm going to make a motion to move this 1 month.
We have a motion on the floor. Now, you can offer an amendment, but you...
Okay, well, I'm making one of those superseding or whatever they're called motions. That basically, a motion to postpone this, or what was the phrasing? Chairman Phillips? What? Just a month. Yeah, to move this to the next committee meeting, and we'll see where we can go from there. That's a amending motion.
I'm not sure that that's in order. As a matter of fact, I'm going to rule that it's not.
I'm not sure that it is either. A motion was made. I think a motion could be made to amend the motion, but not to floor the motion. I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but that's my interpretation.
Well, that's my interpretation as chairman. You can make an amendment to the motion that's on the floor. Now, if this motion is voted down, then you can come back with another motion that would floor this request and put it off to next month. But other than that, I will entertain, if that's what you want to do, an amendment.
My statements that related to moving dirt and approving was all covered at Health and Ed, and I'm pretty sure that Health and Ed was comfortable with this elementary school and Laverne High School working through the finance department and the school board. And that's the reason that I said that, is that if we approve this, we're probably in the process of approving that school with the information that we've got through our finance department. I didn't mean to say that we were needing to delay it. My thought was that if we approve this tonight, then we're looking at approving school going forward, even with no help out of Nashville.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Do I hear any further discussion or amendments? Hearing none, call roll.
Mr. Irvin?
Can you restate the motion? I'm sorry. Which motion are we talking about?
Talking about the motion to, for the 3.64.
The full 3.6, with no deferral. Oh, no, I'm just making sure. There wasn't like some kind of...
It's just a motion as presented by the school board.
And I can read, it's on your iPad right there.
No, I understand. I'm just trying to make sure there wasn't some other piece to it that I'm missing. Okay, all right.
Okay, call roll.
Mr. Irvin?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Piercy?
Yes.
Reno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. P?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Director.
Thank you all.
Okay,
Chairman P.,
yes, sir.
I've got a comment I'd like to make. We give these three fellas a pretty hard time, and they took it pretty good. They got a little tight here and there, but this is really not the place this needs to start, questioning for the schools. They can't help it, because the kids come and say, my mommy wants me to go to school. They've got to send them to school. We need to work on this further up the line before it gets to our school board. Now, I'm not for building a school a year either, because it'll most likely make my property taxes go up. But I think we need to alter this problem before it becomes a school problem. And that's my thinking on this.
You talking birth control?
No, I'm not. I'm talking about slowing the growth of the in this county, rather than having all the children flood here, because it's the cheapest trick in several counties to come to.
I understand.
It can be slowed some.
We
I'm
have-
not saying stop it,
I understand.
but it was not birth control.
I understand that. We actually, under other business, we will be discussing something, hopefully that'll help with that. And I'm going to go ahead and call up our next person, which is item 11, applicant for the Tennessee Department of Human Services grant for child support enforcement. And Judge, welcome, and I appreciate you sticking with us there. And I noticed you've got a youngster with you, and it reminds me of my kid sitting with me during many commission meetings. He's learning a hard lesson there. Judge, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, and when you get started there, some people still don't recognize you, but. Item 11, that's correct.
All right, thanks for having me, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Travis Lampley. I'm the Rutherford County Juvenile Court Judge. Got two matters here on the agenda tonight. Our first one is the application for Tennessee Department of Human Services grant for our child support enforcement. This is a portion, was it 60%?
This is for the juvenile court magistrate's salary is what we use, and this covers approximately 60% state, or 60% of the grant, and there is a match of approximately 30 to 35%. And we've had this grant for many years.
Right, for many years. I have three magistrates. One magistrate here is child support matters 3 days a week, and this is a portion of his salary. Be $32,000 from the county, is that right? Perfect.
I think this is non-matching, isn't it?
No, this one has a match, the next one is a no match.
Oh, okay, okay.
And this is an application to apply for that grant.
So the total grant that we're applying for is $94,100.
That's the total project cost. The grant would actually be $62,100, and our portion would be $32,000.
Our portion is $30,000 of the $62,000.
No, of the 94 is the total project. If you go to page 2 of the attachment there, you're going to see the grant budget. The grant contract is going to be for $62,100, and the grantee participation, which is our match amount, is going to be for $32,000.
The total project is $94,100.
And that is up to that. So, for example, if that position were to be empty, or some type of cost for that position were to come down, whether that's for benefits come down or taxes or something like that, those are up to that amount for this project cost.
Again, this is asking permission to apply.
And we've had this for several years.
Commissioner Johnson. Motion to approve the grant.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Irving. Any further discussion? Call roll.
Mr. Irvin?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner No? Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes, motion carries. Continue, please.
All right, number 12 is application for amendment to the Juvenile Court State Custody and Prevention Grant. This is what we in-house call a Solutions Grant. It's a funding for, the idea is to keep kids out of custody, or out of state's custody, out of JDC custody. When children are maybe made a few bad decisions. We give them some services, kind of direct them back in the right path so they can be productive citizens of our community and put this usually, one-off behavior behind them and move forward. But this is something we use every day. It's greatly needed in our county and in our courtrooms. And this is, again, just an application for...
This is an application for an amendment to the current contract or grant contract that we have, and this is a no match. This is a no match.
No match.
You've heard that. Any questions for the judge or for Michael? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Johnson,
Second.
Commissioner Sereno seconds. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Judge. Who's that young man you've got with you?
My youngest son, I have 3 sons. This is the youngest one, Whit Lampley.
Nice to meet you, sir. I would like
And
to
I
call...
will add that he's been on his best behavior.
He has. Much better than you.
Well, I thought I've been doing pretty good.
You have.
I think there's a calming face in front of me now that kind of helps.
I think that's part of it. I want to ask the committee, would y'all entertain a 5-minute break before we start? And I say yes. We're going to take 5 minutes, please. Thank you. We are back in order, and we are now to item 13, which is a CTAS Fire Department funding report. I don't know who's planning on bringing that forward, but you're welcome to come forward to do that.
I believe this was something that Chairman Phillips requested that public safety look into, and this report was forwarded to this committee from public safety.
You keep pointing your finger at me. This budget committee last year entertained at the 11th hour alternative to taxes. One of them was wheel tax, and the other one was fire tax. So public safety looked at this, and I believe it was steering that looked at wheel taxes, and this is the report that's come out for the budget committee to use at their discretion, however they want to, as they get in. So if a fire tax comes up, this is the document that gives you all the information that you need.
Would it be possible for us to get a printed copy of this for further use somewhere down the road?
I'd be glad to print you a copy and have it for you either in your box or at the commission meeting.
That'll be great. Not that I want to use it, but rather than have somebody have to do it the second time.
We'll print a copy for everyone and pass it out next Thursday night at full commission meeting.
Okay, so we'll have a hard copy in your mailbox or at the next full commission meeting, which is next Thursday, I guess the 11th. So, having said that, we're going to move on now to other business, and I'm going to call on our Public Information Officer, Lisa Kay. Please come up.
Good evening, all. Thank you, Chairman P., for the opportunity to address this committee. Commissioners, my message is simple. I don't even have to do a PowerPoint presentation. As Commissioner Phillips so kindly indicated, a communications plan was launched this week to help growth in Rutherford County pay for itself. So you have some materials at your seats, and we are asking you to do 3 for Rutherford County. If you live in Rutherford County, we want you to take the survey, sign the petition, and send a message to your representative. Our team has made this so easy. It literally can be done within 2 minutes. I'm asking you to share it on your social media accounts, as Chairman P. has already done and others have done. And now you have 3 different sizes at your seats to give out to people in the community. We will have a full-scale media event on Thursday, January 11th at 1 p.m. in room 205 at the historic courthouse. So again, I'm asking you to do 3 for Rutherford County. We want you to take the survey, sign the petition, and send a message to your representative.
Any questions from any of the commissioners?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
We can give it to the community where we run to, right?
Yes, sir. If you can give either size to anyone, and they can either just go to helprutherford.org, or they can scan the QR code. So they can, and it'll take them straight to the survey. And if they just answer the prompts, then it'll give them the instructions to go from there.
Would you
Thank you.
Lisa, would you mind explaining a little bit exactly what the survey questions would be if you were, say, in favor of impact fees or against them? What I want to make sure everybody knows, just because you look at the survey doesn't mean that you have to say yes or no. That's up to you once you read the survey.
Correct.
But please go ahead.
The mayor and the commission, with a vote 20-1, they have adopted a resolution to send to our state delegation and to try to get Rutherford County the authority to have the ability to levy development taxes or impact fees. So we're asking you to go to this survey, and if you think growth should pay for itself, that's the first question that you'll see. You answer yes or no. If you think growth should pay for itself and you answer yes, you follow the prompts there. Put in your name, address, and then it will ask you if you want to sign a petition. And then it'll also ask you if you want to send a message to your representative. Go back to the first screen. If you don't want growth to pay for itself and you hit no, you need to follow the prompts there as well. Because if you think raise my property taxes as much as you want, you can voice that concern as well. So you're answering one question. Do you think growth should pay for itself? Yes. Or do you think growth should pay for itself? No. And you just follow the questions.
Lisa, I think you did an excellent job of explaining that. I've taken it, I know several more of you have, and 2 minutes is, you know, I'm pretty slow and have thick fingers, but it took me about 2 minutes. Commissioner Gooch.
Are you able, Ms. Kay, to see the results in live time?
We have.
At the end of the day, when someone does a survey, you'll be able to see what the vote tally is from.
Our OIT department has that information and disseminates it to the appropriate people. But I can tell you from what I know that since this was launched this week, we've had over 500 responses so far.
Has anyone voted to raise their property taxes unlimitedly?
From the information I have, we did have 4 that said, no, raise my property taxes.
Oh. And they had to sign that document that they...
I don't know if they chose to send a letter, a message saying that as well.
Okay.
But should growth pay for itself, we had 4 people say no.
Okay.
But they have the option to send that forward too,
Correct,
right?
they do.
Yes.
They have the same options. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Okay, we have one other item on the agenda or under other business, and I'm going to ask Commissioner Piercy if you would to explain, or you may need some help there, but.
Michael's going to help me, but I want to explain what's going on and what we're trying to do. As you know, you've probably seen maybe on Channel 4 or on Facebook, our volunteer fire department at Las Casas ceased December 31st. So now we rely on Rutherford County to service from the Walter Hill or the Kittrell area until our new station can be opened. through this process is a couple young men had this real crazy idea that they would try to work together and maybe promote a community center in the old fire hall building and maybe instate back the fish fry to start back so the community would have a place to meet, mingle, and see old friends. And in the turn, the monies generated from this would benefit the ballpark where we have closed off their entrance. We've made them a new temporary entrance on the side where they can get to the ball field. And then also we tore down the building that the Lions Club was meeting in also. The purpose of trying to put a community center back together is to benefit the kids in the ball field and the Lions Club. I'm one of the crazy two guys that kind of went in with another gentleman sitting back here in the back, and we kind of schemed all this together. Since then, we've worked on trying to put a community board together. We have now 9 members and 1 alternate. Our next move, which will be our hardest, is trying to create the 5013C. And it's going to take a while. Through a gracious gift from the Las Casas Volunteer Fire Department, they have offered to give us the monies that the county is going to pay for a tanker truck that belongs to the fire department and a brush truck that belongs to the fire department. Now keep in mind, the county already owns the large fire truck that's out there. That truck is not involved in what I'm telling you. This is 2 vehicles that belong to Las Casas Volunteer Fire Company. They have gotten an estimate from Safe Industries for what these trucks are valued at. Safe Industry give them a high and a low. They were courteous enough to cut the middle rather than ask for all the money. Total for what the trucks are going to sell for is $160,000. That money is already in Chief Farley's budget. It's not going to take any new money from general fund. It's just transition of his money. Now, the purpose I'm standing here, and I guess we'll have to have a vote of approval to do what we need to do. They're in the process of closing the fire department's 5013C. We're in the process of preparing to apply for a 5013C for this community center. It's going to be probably 90 days lapse right in there. We're not prepared to take the money for the trucks now. What we want to ask to be done is let them sell the trucks to the county, earmark that money in the general fund for use for this community center only till we can get our 5013C open and can accept that money. That's what we're asking to do. Michael advised me to bring it to this committee and also to the full commission floor. It's a great opportunity to save a community with a gracious gift of $160,000. Without that money, this dream will not happen. It's just that simple. Money will go to a good cause. The proceeds, we have talked about splitting this money between the ballpark, the Lions Club, and operations of the building. Our building needs some work. The kitchen needs some repairs to ever get a fish fry back on the ground. That's what we're asking for here tonight. And Michael, do you have anything to add?
That's correct. The only thing I would add, one of the reasons that I advised Commissioner Pierce to bring this tonight is that the county attorney and me did see an initial draft of a sale agreement or a resolution. We both had some recommended changes to that. The county attorney may have spoke as late as this afternoon, about 4 o'clock, about some revisions. So my recommendation was for this body to if they wish to do this, to approve this contingent upon the county attorney review, and the county attorney will have you a formal resolution and document in front of you for Thursday night. But Commissioner Piercy summed it up very accurately of what will be in that document.
I don't know if the fire department has viewed the changes to the sales agreement, but if they do not agree to that, this will not happen. But I would make the motion for y'all to move this forward to the full commission.
We have a motion and a second discussion. I've got a couple of questions, but I want to make sure anybody on the committee.
Can I make a clarification on the wording here? What you'd be voting on tonight would be, the money is, that is correct, it is already in the budget. You would be voting on to take possession of those trucks and to commit the money as a donation to a future 501c3 Las Casas Community Center, whatever they choose to call it. And we would hold that money until that 501c3, and then we would make that donation to the 501c3.
Mr. Gooch. Okay, a couple of questions. First, have y'all been to public safety?
No, we have not.
Okay. Second question is, who owns that building?
Rutherford County does.
Okay, even though it was built with fire department funds?
Fire department built the building. The property belongs to Rutherford County, presuming that when it ceased to be a fire hall, it would revert back to Rutherford County.
Okay, I just want
I can't prove that, but I think that's how that goes.
Well, I mean, I think it's a good use of funds for your community. So, I support that. I just want to make sure our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed. So
we will have to go back to property management and ask for a lease for this, because when they vacate the property, their lease is over, and we will have to have a lease for the property there for the community center, and the ball club will have to have a lease for their usage of what they use also.
well, and then, of course, my other question was, had that been through public safety? Because, having
It'll go through public safety next month as it relates to the purchase of that equipment.
And I understand that, but what I'm getting at is, if we had any director out here that just says, hey, I want to make a purchase, there's procedures that we follow. I just want to make sure that we're good there. I've asked Michael, as far as our attorney goes, he sounds like that they'll be okay with this, with the changes they've suggested.
And they were very, very minor changes. I mean, very minor, some wording on. We just didn't want that 501c3 never to come about and the other one to be dissolution, and we're stuck. Who do we give money to? We just wanted to clarify. That was the only clarification we had. I do want to clarify one thing Commissioner Phillips said. Because this money is already purchased or budgeted, that purchase would not be required, to purchase these trucks would not be required to go back through public safety unless the commission would take care of all of that next week, unless y'all had a different wish. But as far as a requirement, it would, on our end, from the legal and budgetary requirements, would be done next Thursday night.
Any other questions? Not, you've got a motion and a second.
When's the contract will be available?
Nick sent me a draft honestly about an hour ago. The final, we had talked about it. I would assume any day late this week. It was very, very simple. We just did not want it open-ended. If that 501c3 never ceased to come about for whatever reason, we wanted some clarification on what we were going to do with the money, other than it just be kind of held in limbo indefinitely.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Call roll, Lisa. Excuse me.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Mr. P?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Well, there being no other business, we are adjourned. Thank you.